Hello and welcome back to the Daily Bible Summary, where the goal is to renew your mind as we read a new chapter every day and ask, what can I learn? Today's episode is entitled, A New Name for Jacob. If you've read chapter 32, let's get started. As this chapter opens, Jacob is met again by the angels of God. This time, Jacob calls the place Mahanaim, meaning two camps or God's camp. The last time he saw angels, they were ascending and descending on a ladder, and that place he named Bethel, for God's house. Now, as he's returning, God sends angels to meet him again. God's presence is going to bookend his journey. As Jacob approaches Canaan, he knows that he'll have to deal with his brother Esau. He sends messengers to Esau to let him know that he is returning from staying with Laban. Furthermore, he wants Esau to know that he has plenty of goods for his own to provide for himself. In other words, as I come back, I won't need to take anything from you. I'm not going to be a burden. Now you'll note that the text says that Jacob sent the messengers to Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. Now why is Esau there? Apparently Esau has moved south and established himself in that region, but hold on to that question and we'll discuss it more tomorrow. For now, let's note that Jacob knew where to find Esau, which indicates that some communication over the years from Isaac to Jacob had transpired. The messengers return, but not with news that Jacob is happy to hear. Now, it could all be innocent, but why is Esau coming to meet him with 400 men? Jacob begins to think the worst, as I imagine any of us would too. He divides everything into two groups because he thinks that if Esau attacks one group, the other could escape. He's definitely afraid. And the second thing that Esau does is pray. The prayer is humble, acknowledging that he's here on his way home because God told him to return. He acknowledges that he's unworthy of the steadfast love and faithfulness that God has shown him. And he specifically asks God to deliver him from Esau because he's afraid Esau will attack the mothers with the children. Then he reminds God and himself of God's promise. You said, I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea. Now you may notice that Jacob has been acknowledging God more in the last couple of chapters. He seems to be growing in his dependence and recognizing that he needs to be dependent on God. So spending the night where he is, Jacob prepares a gift for Esau. And the gift is large. 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 lambs, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. The purpose is easy to see. He wants to appease Esau. Whatever anger or resentment Esau may have, this gift is meant to soothe. This feels a lot less like showing up with a housewarming gift and more like showing up with a whole house, maybe even a mansion. He sends them on ahead in 3 separate groups. As each one meets Esau in turn, hopefully each one will mollify any anger that Esau may be feeling or resentment against Jacob. And then Jacob either escorts his family across the Jabbok Creek and returns, or he sends them while he stays on the other side. The text is a little vague on this specific point, but verse 24 says, he was left alone. And this is when things get interesting. It is simply stated that a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. Now we don't know where the man came from, and we don't know when the man left. But this wrestling appears to be with God, or at least Jacob thinks so once all is said and done. Jacob himself will say, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. And in this wrestling match, Jacob prevails. Well, sort of. Much like a father wrestling with his 6-year-old son and letting the son beat him, God allows Jacob to hold on. But when his opponent touches Jacob's hip socket, Jacob is suddenly injured and limping. The touch shows that God could have ended this any time he wanted to. And even limping, Jacob holds on, demanding a blessing. As we read this, it's worth noting how God dealt with people in the past. Hebrews 1, verse 1 and 2 says, long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. This certainly could include through physical encounters like this wrestling match. But then he goes on to say, in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son. Today, God speaks through Jesus and his Word. not through wrestling matches. But the lesson learned is really the important part. Jacob has been struggling against people his whole life, and even against God. I think he's just coming to realize that he depends on God for the blessings in his life. Without God's protection, there will be many Labans in the world who will take advantage of him and leave him destitute. In two ways, Jacob has prevailed. First, by hanging on and not giving up in the fight. First, by hanging on and not giving up in the fight. He would not let go of God even when he was caused to limp. And two, Jacob has prevailed in a sense that he has conquered himself as well. He's going to be a much different person after this wrestling match than before. The transformation is now complete. He will not try to do things on his own terms anymore, but let God guide him and accept God's blessings. God blesses Jacob with a new name, and it is this name that the nation will be called. It's the name of Israel. The name means he strives with God, or God strives. The Hebrew allows both of those meanings. But in so many ways over the years, this nation will live up to the name of striving with God. Jacob calls the place Peniel, which means the face of God, saying, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. In this transformation moment, Jacob, the deceiver, the heel grabber, becomes Israel, the one who strives with God. God is making a change or marking a change in Jacob's character and his identity. The chapter ends by noting a custom which developed from this wrestling match that still persists among the Israelites that are Orthodox today. They don't eat the tendon attached to the hip socket because that's where Jacob was struck. So what can we take away from this chapter? First, when fear overwhelms you, pray and trust God, then act wisely. There will be times in our lives when we are afraid. Fear is often irrational, but there's no reason to downplay it and say that it doesn't exist. For Jacob, the fear of Esau was real, especially as Esau is bringing 400 men to meet him. Talk about overpowering forces. What can Jacob do against that? The answer is in another question. What can God do against that? Is anything too hard for the Lord? When the Lord is for us, there is no force on earth or in the heavens that can stand against us. Jacob prays to God for help and renews his trust in him. But notice, he still acts afterwards. He divides his camp to protect his family. He sends gifts to appease Esau. He doesn't just pray and then do nothing. He prays, he trusts God, and then he acts wisely. Romans 8:31 says, if God is for us, who can be against us? Fear is real, but God is bigger than our fears. Now here's a thought question for you. What fears or concerns do you have that you're not bringing before God's throne? Are you trusting God, but also acting wisely? Or are you paralyzed by fear? A second application could be that God transforms us when we stop wrestling against him and start depending on him. Wrestling with God taught Jacob who was in control in their relationship. God could have won at any point. We often think that we call the shots, but it's God who makes straight our pathways. Even though God let Jacob win, Jacob leaves the wrestling match with a limp, and he learned that God was always the stronger one. Best to conquer our own nature, and strive to adopt his nature. In looking at the name Israel, we can see that it means striving against God, that is, fighting his will. Or it could mean striving alongside with God, partnering in his purposes. Jacob learned to strive alongside God, not against him. When we stop fighting God's will and start depending on his strength, transformation can then happen. Jacob became Israel. The deceiver became the one who strives with God. Proverbs 3 verse 5 and 6 say, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Blessings flow when we stop wrestling against God and start walking with him. So in your life, are you wrestling against God or alongside him? Are you fighting his will, or are you depending on his strength? Tomorrow, Lord willing, we'll see Jacob finally meet Esau face to face and discover whether those 400 men are a threat or a welcoming party. As we reflect on God's transforming power and his faithfulness to those who trust him, we continue each day to renew the mind.